Good day to all of you, wherever you are. My name is René van der Berg, and I'm a Dutch linguist working with SIL International based in Papua New Guinea. My topic today is Un-Austronesian features of Malol, an Oceanic language of PNG. This presentation has three parts. We will first look at background information about Malol, location, classification, and typology. Part 2 is the main focus, the Un-Austronesian features of the language. And in part 3, I will present a summary and a conclusion. Malol is a language of Papua New Guinea spoken on the north coast of New Guinea, not so far from the border with Indonesian Papua. There are some 4,500 speakers, and it belongs to the Schouten group in the North New Guinea language, part of Western Oceanic. One of the best known Schouten languages is Manam. Malol has neighboring Austronesian languages, but also borders two distinct and unrelated Papuan families, Torricelli and Sko. The data here is based on limited fieldwork with native speakers, and my wife is currently writing a grammar of Malol. Here is a map of the northwest corner of PNG, Sundown province, possibly the area with the greatest linguistic diversity worldwide. We find no less than 9 language families and 2 isolates in an area roughly the size of France. You can see the location of Malol, which is the arrow pointing at 103 on the north coast. The Atypical area was the location of a major natural disaster in June 1998, when a very powerful tsunami hit the area, causing much damage and major loss of life. More than 1,600 people were killed. In some ways, Malol is a typical Oceanic language. The regular 5 vowels, 14 consonants, 3 demonstratives, SVO constituent order, verbs inflected for number person, verbs making a realis-irrealis distinction, and also serial verbs are common, few conjunctions, no clear subordination, and no evidence for metatypy, which is the wholesale reorganization of morphosyntactic and semantic patterns due to language contact. But we do find various Un-Austronesian features in Malol. These include 4 falling diphthongs, no voiced stops, word final palatal consonants, no clusivity distinction among the pronouns, and various others that are listed here. I now come to the middle part of the presentation, where we focus on 6 of these atypical features. And by atypical, I mean atypical for a Western Oceanic language. Due to time constraints, we can only briefly address 6 of these. The falling diphthongs, the word final palatal consonants, the lack of clusivity distinctions, no valency-changing morphology, a simple binary numeral system, and a light verb do. When we look at these 6 features, we will first present and illustrate each feature and then ask the following question. Was that feature actually present in Proto-Oceanic? Hence, is it a loss or an innovation? Was it present in other Schouten languages? In Proto-Schouten, most of them are present in the other Siau languages, such as Arop and Sisano, but I will ignore that here. Is it possibly influenced from Torricelli languages, such as Walman or Olo? Or is it possibly influenced from Sko languages, specifically Barupu? And then we'll end with a tentative conclusion. So let's look at the first one, the 4 diphthongs. The chart shows the 4 falling diphthongs of Malol, ie, ea, uo, oa, illustrated in the 4 words there. Note that the phonetic realization of each diphthong differs considerably between speakers, and even within a single speaker. So the phonetic realization of the high to mid front diphthong can be ear, 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 or even ear. Were there diphthongs in Proto-Oceanic? As far as we know, not so. Are they common in Oceanic? No, they're very uncommon in Western Oceanic, although some are found in Vanuatu. Were there diphthongs in the Schouten languages? Yes, Tumleo, Sisano, and Arab all have them, but they're poorly described. Are there diphthongs in Torricelli? Yes, Walman has ie and ua, Olo doesn't have them. And there are no diphthongs in Barupu. So the tentative conclusion that it's probably a local innovation under the influence of Torricelli. We move to feature 2, palatal consonants. Malol has 2 palatal consonants, j and ny, mostly in word final position, illustrated in the words ruch, ach, achakal, rany, tuny, and pony. The question about palatals is, did Proto-Oceanic have palatals? The answer is yes, but strangely, not in word final position. Do other Schouten languages have palatals? Yes, several of them have retained Proto-Oceanic ny as ny, including Kairiru and Tumleo, but in Proto-Siau and hence in Malol, they have merged as n, as you can see in the word for mosquito, nam, and the word for good, mon. Each of them goes back to a word with a Proto-Oceanic palatal. This is puzzling. How then did the new final palatals arise in Malol? The answer is through metathesis, palatalization, and loss of e. So the Proto-Oceanic word for night, bongi, probably went through a stage like bongi, boni, boin, metathesis, palatalization to boin, and then the loss of e, and we end up with pony. And the same is true for the other ones. Walman does have palatal nasals, Olo does not, and Barupu does not have palatal nasals and palatal consonants. The tentative conclusion again is probably a local innovation under the influence of Torricelli. Let's remember, though, that this is rather strange because palatal nasals were lost relatively recently, but then reintroduced in word final position, the only position they were not found in to start with. Clusivity is feature 3. Malol lacks a clusivity distinction among first-person non-singular pronouns. The word et, that you can see in the chart there, is just like English we, covering both inclusive and exclusive. This is highly Un-Austronesian, as clusivity is almost part of the DNA of an Austronesian language. The single dual pronoun och for first and second person is also unusual, but that's another story. Clusivity was clearly present in Proto-Oceanic. It was also present in Proto-Schouten, though already fading in some of the Kairiru dialects, and apparently was lost in Proto-Siau. Interestingly, all the neighboring languages lack clusivity. The whole Torricelli family lacks it, with 1 or 2 exceptions. Sco is completely lacking, and the conclusion, therefore, is almost inescapable. This is contact-induced loss. Feature 4. Malol has no valency-changing morphology. It has no causative, no applicative, no reciprocal, no transitivizer, and no passive morphemes. The verbal morphology is limited to realis, arealis, imperfective, a first-person plural and third-person plural marker, and some adverbial suffixes. This is illustrated in 1, where we see the realis prefixes, k and ka, the k in allomorph before vowels, marking past action, and the adverbial suffix a, up. In 2, we have the imperfective, tak, and the allomorph ta before a, marking habitual action. And the morpheme ar marks then a third-person plural subject. So, no valency-changing morphology in Malol, but Proto-Oceanic did have extensive valency-changing morphology, not just a causative, but also applicative, reciprocal, transitivizing, and passive. And even Proto-Scouten had several. It's reconstructed by Ross as having a causative and a reciprocal, and probably also applicative. Torricelli has applicative and reflexive reciprocal morphology. Barupu has applicative morphology. So the question is, why did Malol lose that? It's possible, this is tentative, that the causative morphology was lost to influence from Torricelli, and the applicative was maybe a local innovation. This is all quite tentative. Clearer is feature 5, where we have a simple numeral system. Malol has an extremely limited numeral system, distinguishing only 1 and 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, as you can see, are made up of combinations of these. In practice, only 1 and 2 are found in regular language use. For 3 and higher numbers, Tokpisin or English words are used. Again, this is unusual from an Oceanic perspective, because Proto-Oceanic had a full decimal system, and even Proto-Scouten had separate words for 5 and 10. However, if we look at neighboring languages, including Torricelli and Balman Olo and Barupu, we find that they do indeed all have this limited numeral system, a binary distinction, combination, plus a word, one hand or side for 5. The conclusion is almost inescapable again. This is loss under the influence of Torricelli and Sco. The last feature we will look at is a light verb do. The verb ho has at least 4 functions in Malol. It's a main verb do, make, as in I'm making a canoe, you did good work. It's also the first verb in a serial verb construction with a causative meaning. Make good means correct, improve, restore. And then with following adjectives, it means be or become, as in example 3, your name will be big, meaning may you be famous, with a irialis on the ho. And 4 is another example of the use of ho with an adjective. It was a good thing, it was good. But the real surprise in Malol is the use of ho as a light verb, exclusively with borrowed nouns from Tokpisin forming verb adjunct phrases. An example is 5, where the noun save from Tokpisin, knowledge, combines with ho in the meaning to have knowledge, to know. And another example is 6, where kohopilim, do feeling, means to feel. Notice also the nice idiom for he was hungry. Literally, food was biting him. It seems Malol does not borrow verbs. Instead, it borrows nouns and uses them as adjuncts in combination with the light verb ho. Questions regarding light verbs. Are light verbs reported for a Proto-Oceanic? Not as far as I'm aware of. But light verbs are reported for various families in the Sepik area. Not so much in Torricelli, but certainly for Sco, including Barupu. So again, the conclusion must be very likely a contact-induced innovation. In summary, and now I'm in part 3, we can say that most changes appear to be context-induced. If we look at the chart, we see in the first column the 6 features we've looked at. Then in the second column, whether this indicates whether it was present in Proto-Oceanic. Note that 3 of the absent features were present in Proto-Oceanic and therefore represent losses, the clusivity, the valency morphology, and the simple numerals. The other 3 represent innovations, the diphthongs, the palatal consonants, and the light verb do. Column 3 shows which features are potentially due to contact with Torricelli, and column 4, which ones are potentially due to contact with Sco. It can be seen that 2 of the features, 3 and 4, lack of clusivity in the simple numeral system, could have been due to contact from both language families. The lack of valency-changing morphology can only partly be blamed on Torricelli and Sco. A more refined analysis on each category is needed and may shed more light on the developments here. In conclusion, this investigation raises many new research questions. How does this relate to the decline of innovativeness that Ross has talked about in his 1991 article? Ross shows that moving from east to west in the Scouten languages, there's an increase in innovations, mostly losses and mergers. Manam in the Far East is the most conservative. Malol, close to the western edge, is very innovative. What other Austronesian features of Malol are candidates for contact-induced change? Some of these were listed on slide 7, and possibilities to look into are posture verbs and the use of bare obliques instead of prepositional phrases. Further questions are also possible. What actually was the social linguistic situation of Proto-Siau? Was there a substrate? Was it a case of admixture? How much multilingualism was going on? Another question is why no other features emerged in Malol. For instance, both Varupu and Torricelli languages typically have gender in the pronouns. This doesn't surface in any of the Siau languages, including Malol. And a final question is, were there other Sco languages in that area before the Austronesians arrived? It's possible, but this remains at this moment rather speculative. In conclusion, we can say that it's hardly surprising that such a linguistically diverse area will not easily yield all the answers. But that contact-induced language change plays a major role in the shape that Malol now has is beyond doubt. So let it be an incentive to keep digging before it's too late. Thank you very much.